we're back, and I'm talking with Jim Thomas, who is the city manager of Claremore, opposed to this particular measure. Jim, welcome.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate the opportunity to.
I know you're busy as a cranberry merchant at bean counting time, but why the opposition?
Well, you know, Sam, I've been in public service almost 30 years, and for the state of Oklahoma, where municipalities only have sales tax to draw on to run our operations, this will hurt us. We don't have the luxury of having property taxes or getting a appropriation from the legislature. All we rely on is the 3 cents sales tax that we generate here in Claremore. And I guess I speak about Claremore, but I can speak for the whole state. Every municipal government is struggling trying to make ends meet when you're dependent on sales tax. We don't have the luxury of having real estate taxes. So I find it to be not good, sound public policy. I'm grateful for my first grade teacher. She made me who I am today. I'm grateful for the high school teachers that had an impact on my life, but I don't think this is the right policy to implement in Oklahoma as we go forward.
Let me ask you a question, and again, I'm coming at you not as an adversary. I'm really trying to learn more about your position on this. You have a 3 cent sales tax now, is that correct?
We do.
Then this would make it a 4 cent sales tax.
No, in Rogers County, the total sales tax is 9.33%. 4.5% goes directly back to the state of Oklahoma to support education and other things. The city only gets 3 cents, and then the county gets about 1.65% of that.
Would it raise your tax then?
It will raise the overall tax base. It'll put us over 10%. We will be the highest sales tax state in the nation. We will be #1, and I don't think this is what we want to be #1 for.
Who then should belly up and say, okay, we need to fund this? Where should that money come from? How should it be done?
I think we need reform from a tax policy standpoint. I just came back from Cincinnati, Ohio. I was up there with 100 leaders from the Tulsa Regional Chamber of Commerce, and we went up there and looked at best practices in Cincinnati. There's a number, the city of Cincinnati gets a 2.5 cent income tax directly that comes back to the city of Cincinnati. They get property taxes, they have sales taxes, so they have a number of venues to draw on to run their day-to-day operations. In Oklahoma, cities are only dependent on their sales tax and what they can generate. So I truly believe the legislature needs to show some leadership, and we need tax reform. I was with Mr. Boren 2 years ago when he proposed us not to lower the income tax, the 1/4%. I believe that was the right thing. I think for me personally, it would have, I'm going to save $300. I would have rather had that $300 go into education, go into roads, go into corrections. But this particular policy that's being put forth is bad for local government. It's taking from Peter to pay Paul. I think all of us realize that teachers need a raise, but this is not the way to do it.
Jim, you know, without me telling you, that bunch in Oklahoma City has been playing a shell game with money for years, taking it from this fund to take care of this fund. They knew that we were facing hard times. They knew they could see the writing on the wall for the oil and gas industry. Didn't do anything about it. Didn't do a thing to diversify industry in Oklahoma. Now here we are. Plus, they kept going with the tax cuts. Now, cities like Claremore, Owasso, all over the state are feeling the pinch, just like the big guys are. What's the answer?
I think the answer is, if it were up to me, if I were the governor, I would have assembled members of the legislature. I would have brought Mr. Boren and some of the educators to the table. I would have brought municipal leaders to the table. We would have had a education summit and discussed options of how we address this. Putting our head in the sand and just pushing it off to future generations or kicking the can down the road is not the right way to do. The status quo is not working in Oklahoma. I sympathize with Mr. Boren saying that teachers are leaving the state, but this is not the kind of policy that will make us a stronger state. Communities are built on a solid foundation. We need those dollars for our infrastructure and to provide public safety so that families want to come to Oklahoma, that we can encourage economic development with our industries and provide those resources for the schools, for the universities and the schools. But this kind of policy that's being put forth by the proponents of 779 is just not in our best interest.
See, I hearken back to the campaign for House Bill 1017, and I remember well how, boy, we got to get this passed. This is coming from the legislature. We got to get this passed. We got to do this for education, and the money's earmarked for education. Wrong. It didn't go to education. It was farmed out to other agencies. Now, they're talking about a change that would make it mandatory through the state constitution. So that's different from 1017 and the others, isn't it?
Yeah. I think whenever you circumvent the legislature, I mean, those men and women serving the legislature represent the entire state of Oklahoma. If they can't agree on tax policy, I don't think it's the right thing to do to have a citizen-initiated proposal. And that's coming from a block of people throughout the state. I think it's only going to be a penny on a dollar. Well, when you think about it, when you go out and buy your groceries, for every $100 you're going to spend at the grocery store, that's $10.33 in taxes. And if you multiply that, you're talking about serious money. This proposal on sales tax is very regressive. It's going to affect Mrs. Kravitz, the widow, that can't afford this kind of tax increase. And especially in a down economy, to put forth a tax increase of this magnitude is only going to force people to buy more goods and services on the internet. We're already losing substantial dollars to the internet because people aren't having to pay sales tax on the internet. And this is going to force them in that direction. And that's why I would propose an education summit where you get a variety of people around the table and you talk about the problem, and I think somehow you'll find a solution, but this isn't the solution.
But the OU president also points out that we're seeing many schools in Oklahoma now go to a 4-day work week or a 4-day class week. That education is starting to suffer. There was just a thing in the paper in the Tulsa World about how Oklahoma now is dead last in the amount of money spent per student, in terms of education. And that in the long run, that's going to hurt us because, in the short run too, because industry will not come here if they can't count on good schools and good teachers. And they look around and see, Texas, to be expected, big money down there, but you're looking at Arkansas, Mississippi, spending more than Oklahoma, Alabama, South Carolina, spending more than Oklahoma on education. I wondered if, when I heard about this particular issue, 779 isn't just a last-ditch effort to get somebody to do something.
Yeah. The thing that we need to keep in mind is 52 cents out of every dollar that's collected in Oklahoma City, all taxes, sales tax, income tax, royalty tax, goes back into education. And so they're getting more than 50% of the income now. If you just think about that 4.5 cents that I said we collect here in Claremore and send to Oklahoma City for the sales tax, that's $15 million a year coming out of Claremore, Oklahoma to support education. I don't think the school system in Claremore, and I'm speaking of the K through 12 program with Superintendent McLaren, he's not getting $15 million, but we're sending $15 million just with that 4.5 cent sales tax. And so that's why I say tax reform has got to be priority one. These kinds of decisions can't be made in a vacuum. We've got to get the right people around the table. As I said, when we were in Cincinnati and we talk about the 2.5 cent income tax that's levied in the city of Cincinnati on all the people that work there, last year they brought in 21,000 jobs. And so when you get legislators that are saying, oh, our taxes are too high, we can't compete, That's not the case. We just need to spend our money wisely.
One of the other issues that OU President Boren touched on was the fact that we're losing quality teachers, teachers that have a long tenure. And then at the other end of the scale, we're losing young teachers right out of college who recognize they can't make a living, they can't pay their way through life on what they would make in Oklahoma schools. Everybody seems to say we need to support education. Nobody is really ready with a solution. Now, you mentioned Education Summit. Have you brought that to the governor's office?
I have not. It's something that I've been wrestling with. I called the train summit a year ago to deal with our train and our noise problem here in Claremore. We took a delegation to Washington, D.C. Senator Inhofe helped facilitate that. Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen helped facilitate that. The ODOT director was at the table, and I think we've got trains moving. They're no longer stopping in Claremore, but it's one of those initiatives I think that needs to come forward. I'm very surprised that Mr. Boren didn't put that out on the table and say, let's get the right people around, because this isn't a Republican-Democratic initiative. It's an initiative that faces all Oklahomans.
Let me ask you this. If 779 passes, what will be the effect on Claremore?
It's going to hurt us. It will make us the highest sales tax. I believe people are going to cut back on their spending, and I believe internet sales are going to go up.
I mean, they can't buy their groceries on the internet.
No,
so, you know.
No, but I think you will see sales going down at some of our other retailers. I mean, Oklahomans are just like everybody else. My wife shops at Christmas time on the internet, and I just think you're going to see a spike in that. People only have so much disposable income to spend, and I think that's the other challenge I'm having, because I participated with the Oklahoma Academy a year ago when they had a town hall meeting, and we discussed tax policy in Oklahoma, and we submitted in January of this year some initiatives. But this particular proposal, 779, was discussed. We had 150 people from all over the state of Oklahoma. 12 legislators were there. There were superintendents of schools there. I was one of 5 city managers from around the state that participated in that discussion. 150 people came to the conclusion after 2.5 days of discussion that 779 was bad public policy.
Jim, I hate to cut you off. We're out of time.
Thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend.
You bet, Sam.
We'll talk again. That's all the time we have for this edition. We'll see you next time.